Hey, fellas, what's going on? It is time for the Ryan Goodman Tanguay Along for the Ride podcast. We've got a lot to talk about today, including Larry Bird's birthday. Bob's big on that. Okay, guys, we're going to kick things off here. I want to talk about Kevin Durant a little bit because, to me, he seems to be a bit of an enigma, and I wonder where he's going to end up in history. Bob, I'll start with you. He passed Ray Allen on the all-time scoring list at 24. When I look at Durant, I think he's as talented as LeBron. I think he's as talented as do I want to say he's as talented as Jordan? But I don't know if he will ever be in that category as LeBron and Jordan. Do you agree?
Well, this argument about this discussion, I don't want to call it an argument, this evaluation of where players rank and a pecking order has got to be nuanced always in terms of positions and responsibilities and so forth. Look, nothing has changed for me, guys. The two best all-around players in the history of the game are arguably Michael and LeBron, okay? I do not put Durant in that category, but he is among the top forwards of all time. And he's a unique, he's a distinct player. And I think he's going to get out. For me, if he retired today and played no more, then the worst you can say about him is one of the top four forwards of all time, in my opinion. I think that if we want to call LeBron a forward, he's obviously evolved into something more, right? He's a surrogate point guard, really, and the way it's evolved. Okay, so that changes the equation right there. But Larry Bird remains the best pure forward in history. Okay, pure forward, in my opinion. And Durant is elbowing Mr. Tim Duncan for the next honor. Okay, that's where I put him. He's an all-time great without question, and he's in any discussion of top 10 players for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I think ultimately you're talking about Tim Duncan as like a top 10-ish player ever, and I think Kevin Durant has a chance to go down ahead of Tim Duncan. You know, he's still 33. Remember, he missed a full season with the Achilles injury. He's won 2 NBA titles. I don't know if he's going to win another. I mean, right now,
no lock there, no lock at all.
Right, exactly. He paired with the wrong guy to try to win another. Let's be honest here. But you know, again, what he's done. I asked him this a couple of years ago. I said, you know, and I've known Kevin forever since he was like 14. So he was in Boston in the locker room there. And I said, you know, do you realize how much you kind of changed, for better or worse, the game in terms of big guys wanting to step out and, you know, shoot threes? And he looked at me like almost befuddled. And I think he said something about Dirk, that Dirk was probably a little bit before him.
He should.
But Kevin was different. Like, I don't think kids grew up wanting to be Dirk, but they want to be Kevin Durant. And that's where the big guy has really transitioned now. And the game, I think, has transitioned to where, you know, you got guys like Chet Holmgren, a freshman at Gonzaga now, 7'1". He's 190 pounds. He's skinnier than Kevin Durant was at the same stage. And he wants to step out and shoot threes. And that's par for the course now. So I think what Kevin Durant has done is really revolutionized the big man position now, to whereas unless you're big and you're thick and you're strong, and even those guys, even Al Horford's out there jacking threes right now. I think without Kevin Durant, I'm not sure this ever would have been possible.
Well, I really do think that the Nowitzki, Dirk started this without question. But
it's a European thing, right? European thing. Big guy shot.
The stylistic difference is that Kevin Durant handles the ball a lot more. Kevin Durant has evolved into the LeBron kind of player than Dirk Nowitzki didn't have to do that. It was not his job. He still was a forward who stepped out and shot. There was never any confusion about his role on the team or what he was able or the breadth of his skill. There was a limitation.
I mean, Kevin Durant, He averages 5 or 6 assists every year now.
I know.
Year.
I'm saying he's got the ball in his hands,
right.
and more and more, as I said, he's evolved almost not quite, but into a LeBron-ish more of a player than where Nowitzki still is categorized.
Dirk couldn't guard. Dirk couldn't guard either. Let's be honest. Kevin can guard. I made fun of him a few years in the league, kind of to his face, about the fact that he couldn't guard at all when he came into the league, and he took offense to it, but he couldn't. And now he's become one of the better defenders in the NBA. So Kevin Durant is an all-around player, and I think that's what's lost as well, Bob. And you're talking about it right now as a point forward type. He's an elite scorer, maybe the best scorer in the NBA right now, but he does a lot more than that. And I think that is lost on people. How good a defender, how good a passer, and still being the best pure scorer. If you want a bucket, there's no way you can stop this dude because, again, he's so long. He can rise up right over you. He's incredible in transition. He's not super selfish, he can make people better when he wants to. And I think, again, if he had teamed with the right guy or stayed in Golden State, which is really what he should have done, you'd be talking about winning 4 or 5 titles.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I thought that, he played with Russ Westbrook and he handled him. And that's tough to do. And I thought his greatest performance was last year when Harden wasn't himself and Kyrie couldn't play. I mean, that guy was crazy good. I mean, he left it all on the floor. I thought that, even though they didn't win it, but I thought that was one of his best accomplishments. Got to move on now. We talk about Steph Curry every week, as we should. Now, speaking of Ray Allen, again, he's closing in on Ray's 3-point record. Now, but Jeff, we all know Ray was a specialist. We think of the 3, that's it. Probably unfairly so. But with Steph now, and especially this season, I think he's getting the reputation of being a more complete player. I know you felt he's been that way all along.
Yeah, I do. Because, again, the knocks on Steph, it's so funny. I mean, I remember like it was yesterday coming out of the draft. It was like, all right, he's too small. He can't guard anybody. And he can't really play the point. Like, that was a big question at that point was, does he see the floor well enough? Is he now, again, the slight build has affected him. I mean, he's been injured a lot over the course of his career, little nicks, bigger injuries, whatever it is. He's definitely done that. But what he's shown is he's got maybe not elite court vision, but damn good court vision and damn good passer to go along with, again, being, him and KD. You can throw him in a hat. It's easier. I don't even know if I could say that. I was going to say it's easier to guard Steph than it is KD, but I'm not sure you could say that because Steph can go with the logo and just launch it, and he's effective from that range. So I don't know. Bob, who would you rather guard? If you had a choice, or who would you rather put the ball in their hands at the end of a game, Steph or KD for a final shot?
Well, I think you got a 7-foot guy can get a shot off anytime he wants and has a 3-point range. I'd have to give him the slight edge in that regard because he could take you in areas on the floor where perhaps, you didn't want Steph to go at that point at all. So, I mean, I think that makes him an edge. But I just want to go back and I don't know if you remember my original description of Kevin Durant when was a cross between McAdoo and Gervin and in terms of offensive capability.
Right.
Now he has expanded his range beyond anything McAdoo needed to do. I don't have the slightest doubt today that if McAdoo were playing today, he'd step back, and work on and become a consistent 3-point shooter. He didn't have to because the range that all he ever had to do was take a 18-footer, or a 20-footer. That's the way the game was. There was no, But anyway, that's a very interesting question you raised, and by a slight margin of 50.5 to 49.5, I say Durant in that regard to answer that specific question that you just posed. And only that specific question that you just posed.
Okay, because I caught myself saying Kevin Durant is the best scorer on the planet, and it's almost like you slight Steph Curry in that regard because, damn, I mean, it's like, how do you guard this dude this year in any year for the most part when he's on?
And one thing I've been saying for several years is he's underappreciated and his ability to go to the basket. When he chooses to go to the basket, he goes to the basket with authority. and with ambidexterity as well. And that's been a part of his game. And some nights he gets too, maybe too reliant on the three, but you can't blame him for that. But
and we have more on Steph coming up in just a minute, but we want to say, do you have trouble sleeping at night? Do you want to know what makes LeBron James sleep? It's Calm, the number one app for sleep and meditation. They've teamed up with LeBron to help you activate the power of sleep. It's all about mental fitness. And we know how we feel, man. If you're not getting your 8 hours, especially, man, for Bob and I, this stage of the game, you got to hit the rack. You got to hit the pillow. Calm can help you train your brain to sleep better, reduce stress, and perform at your best, just like King James. So LeBron's sleep is a critical part of his mental fitness routine. So head to calm.com/subscribe for a limited time, and you'll get 40% off a Calm premium subscription. Again, for a limited time, our listeners can join LeBron and using Calm and get 40% off on a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/subscribe. Get it now. Unlock the key to sleep and focus. Calm.com/subscribe. That's calm.com/subscribe. Okay. Last week, we had the mega meetings between the Suns and the Warriors. They split. Bob, what did we learn about those teams?
Well, first of all, we learned that that the Suns at home could win a big game without their best player or with their best player playing 15 minutes. We also learned that their defense is no joke. Their defense is no myth, is for real. We also learned I think that game, the second game, it was a home court game in which you knew that Steph Curry was going to, play better than he did the first one when he was 4 for 21. But I think we learned that they're the two most enjoyable teams to watch in the league. Those two, and those games were I don't know. I would have to say more. They satisfied the heart of this purist. I'll put it that way. Okay. I'm looking forward to seeing each of them play soon again. That's all I can say. I think we learned that they are the two best teams, but I think the fact that the Suns could win without Booker was significant, frankly.
Yeah, and the second one, Booker didn't play at all. Golden State kind of blew him out in that one. I don't hold a lot to it. No. What I would say is, if they're both full strength in the playoffs, that's going to be a hell of a series. Oh. That's what I would say. It's a toss-up series. Now, again, we're waiting on Klay. And to see what Golden State is going to look like with a healthy or healthy-ish Klay Thompson coming back. That is the X factor here. Everybody knows it. What is Klay Thompson going to look like? How effective is he going to be? Is he going to be a guy? We know he's going to be able to make shots, but can he guard like Klay Thompson guarded before? Because if he can, that takes Golden State to a different level than Phoenix or anybody else right now. What
do you hear about Weissman? Any idea about his?
Yeah, I think he's still a little bit away. But again, I think Weissman, the hard part for him is going to be he hasn't played a lot with those guys. So how much are you going to be able to expect? He's young, but they don't need a ton. They just need, honestly, defensive rim protection and a guy who can be kind of a rim runner. Because once they get Klay back, who is going to possibly pay attention to James Wiseman on the offensive end? Nobody.
The only question that arises in my mind, not only question, a question that arises in my mind with regard to Klay's coming back is where that leaves Poole and how Poole will react to a revised role. Obviously, there'll be fewer minutes. And presumably a return to the bench, although maybe not. We don't know. But, I don't know anything about him personally. So I just don't know. And but we all know there are fragile people. I don't have no idea. Some guys will not react as well as others. And so I'm just, that's going to be an interesting aspect of it. Because Poole is let's face it, he's become, I won't say a monster, but a real force.
Yeah. And he can get you buckets.
Has to be feeling good about himself.
He'll get you buckets off the bench, Bob. And I think ultimately he ends up off the bench, but early on, Steve Kerr's smart enough. He'll bring Klay off the bench for a while. Klay won't care at all. And then when Klay looks like he's close to 100%, he'll go in. Or even, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if they're just like, you know what? We're going to keep Klay coming off the bench this year. And Jordan Poole will keep his psyche, because he's a young guy. We'll keep him feeling good about himself. But at the end of the games, that's what's going to matter. Who's in there at the end?
Yeah, and I think that the NBA championship is going to be the Western Conference Finals. I think we all agree on that. That's the way it looks right now. Okay, Jeff, this is something you wanted to touch on. The forgotten man, Kemba Walker, man. He was great in Charlotte. Celtics traded for him. I mean, or made the deal. Yes, they traded for him when Kyrie didn't work. And I thought, okay, Kemba's going to be good. I mean, it's just blowing up. Is this guy done?
I hope not, man. I love Kemba. Like, Kemba is one of my favorite people I've ever met covering basketball, period, or any sport at any level. You know, I'll give you a quick Kemba story. Years ago, Kemba is at UConn, and it's the year he was National Player of the Year, and he had already blown up completely. And I was covering, I think it was for the Washington Post. I was covering the UConn women were going to break the record, the all-time wins record for the program that night. And I was there interviewing Kemba for a story at a hotel near the Bradley Airport for some reason. I don't know if they were staying there or flying out, but I don't remember what it was. But I was there talking to Kemba, and I was going into the women's game, and I asked any of the guys. It was the year of Alex Oriaki, who's from Lowell. I had known him, Jamal Coombs, another local kid. And I asked all of them, I said, hey, if you guys want to ride in, I'm going in. I'll take you back if you really want after the game, even though it's out of my way. And I ended up driving Kemba and Donnell Beverly, his best friend at the time, into the Hartford Civic Center. And when I dropped him off, I said, hey, guys, if you need me, text me after the game. I'll probably be a good hour and a half after I write. But if you really need a ride, let me know. Thinking there's no way. Kemba Walker. Like, everybody's going to walk by him. How many people are going to offer him a ride back? So, you know, half hour, 45 minutes after the game goes by, an hour goes by, all of a sudden I get a text from Kemba saying, hey, we're sitting up here in the lobby of the Hartford Civic Center. Whenever you're ready, you know, if you can drive us back, that'd be awesome. So, you know, I come up, nobody, they're the only ones left in the Hartford Civic Center. And I looked at Kemba, I'm like, really? Like, nobody offered? He's like, yeah, people offered, but like, no big deal, whatever. Waiting, you know, that's how he was. And that describes Kemba Walker, unassuming, no ego whatsoever. So I feel bad that we're seeing this potentially end of Kemba Walker's career when he's not that old.
No,
and he finally had a chance to play for some winning organizations in the NBA, and it just hasn't worked out for him because of his knee issues.
Yeah, no, this is a shame, but I think it's a move that Thibodeau had to make, though. I'm afraid I hate to say.
He can't guard. He can't guard at all. That's his biggest problem right now.
So,
yeah. Well, we hate to see it because of injury, but yeah, I mean, you have to go to the bench, like you said. Okay, we have some college hoop coming up in just a minute. Bob Ryan is passionate about a new number one. I feel like Casey Kasem in American Top 40. We have a new number one this week with a bullet. Okay, anyways. These days, it can be hard to find and hire the right candidates for your small business. Just like for the position I have, these guys, they interviewed thousands of people. That's why LinkedIn Jobs made it easier to find the people that you want to talk to faster. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 777 million people. It's why small business rated LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires against leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million people, they go to LinkedIn looking for jobs? So post your job for free at linkedin.com/scribe. That's linkedin.com/scribe to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, Bob, we got a new number one in college basketball. First time ever for the Boilermakers.
All right, I have a question for you guys. I'll give you the answer. You give me the question. Jeopardy type. All right. Answer is Purdue. What's the question?
That's very vague, Bob. I don't know. The question is, who's the best player ever to play at Purdue?
Oh, well, we're going to get to him. But no, the question is, what school has won the most Big Ten championships? The answer is Purdue.
Really?
How's that little known fact? They have won 24 Big Ten championships. They have never won an NCAA championship, that tournament being founded in 1939. However, speaking of John Wooden, they were awarded retroactively the 1932 championship when Wooden was a senior.
I did not know that.
By acclamation. Purdue is a fascinating, I mean, Jeff, you know.
Wait, first, Bob, Rick Mount or Big Dog? Who are you taking?
Oh, I'm taking, well, Rick Mount. I got to go with Rick Mount. They did get to the finals in 1969. They lost to UCLA and UCLA's Al Sundor's third championship with Rick Mount, the pride of Lebanon, Indiana, where I did have breakfast in honor of Rick Mount once. And in 1980, they lost in the semifinals to UCLA. There's their 2 trips to the Final Four. Now, what I'm getting at, they have been very steadily successful for decades. They were very successful under the Gene Katie era. Now, this is 17th year for Matt Painter, believe it or not. Wow. How about that? And they, I did a little research here, guys. I did a little homework. People don't realize that they went to the Sweet 16 and 3 years in a row, as recently as 2017, 18, and 19. They've been to the 8. How many times? Okay, but it's been a very consistent program. But they've never in their life awakened on a morning to find themselves as the number 1 ranked team in the land. And now, is this any real surprise to you, Jeff, knowing who the personnel was on this team?
A little bit. I saw them in the preseason. I went by West Lafayette, and I was blown away by their big man duo. If you haven't seen him, you got to watch this kid, Zach Edey, Gary. He's 7'4". He's only played basketball for 4 years. He's from Canada, grew up as a baseball player, and obviously outgrew that. He was not going to be the next Randy Johnson, but he is a dominant force, and he's mobile. And what they did was Matt Painter had a dilemma because you can't play this kid Edey and Travion Williams together. They're both bigs, and Williams was a first-team All-Big Ten guy last year. So everybody's like, well, how's he going to handle this? Well, Edey was kicking Travion Williams' ass every day in practice. So he started Zach Edey. And everybody's like, well, how's Travion Williams going to handle this? Well, he's handled it with class and as a great teammate. And that's part of the reason why Purdue's been so good, along with the fact that they have their most talented player named Jaden Ivey since Big Dog, Glenn Robinson. He's a 6'4" guard who is electric. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic, he's shooting it well, and he will go in the lottery.
Their balance is remarkable right now. They got 6 guys averaging between 8 points and 16 a game. No one is averaging more than 27 minutes, but they have 9 guys playing 16 or more minutes. Yeah. I mean, that is awesome depth, And
they can win this whole thing. They can win this whole thing this year. There's no clear-cut number 1 team. I think it's going to be a little bit of a revolving door this year. Okay. It's not like Purdue is Baylor from a year ago, but they're the best team today. And Gonzaga's lost a couple now. Duke lost to Ohio State. It's just going to be one of those things where I think you're going to have 8 or 10 teams that switch it up. By the way, before we go, do you like my hat, Bob?
I do like your hat, from a little swag from the Rams, huh? I told you,
Fort Collins. What a good spot. Have either of you been to Fort Collins, Colorado?
You'll love this story, Gary. I told Jeff the other day that on my one trip to Fort Collins, the Celtics were playing in Denver, and I drove Eric Fernston and Jeff Judkins to Fort Collins to see Danny Ainge play for BYU.
Did you really?
The Judkins was all excited because he was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you formerly known as Mormons, and anyway, we saw Danny. I drove them to the gym, to Moby Gymnasium, right at Fort Collins, and saw the games. That was my one trip to Fort Collins.
Brian, you're unbelievable, and that brings us. That reminds me of how we're going to close the show. Weren't you the first member of the Boston media to see Larry Bird play?
Yes, I told that. Well,
and it's his 65th birthday.
Media, yes, because the other 2 guys that I drove from Indianapolis to Terre Haute were Mike Madden and Jason Stark, who both were then working at the Projo, the Providence Journal. Wow. And the reason we were all in Indianapolis was that Michigan State was playing, Providence was playing Michigan State in an NCAA first-round game on Saturday afternoon. And lo and behold, Larry Bird was playing in Indiana State in an NIT home game against Illinois State on Friday night. And so we drove out to the game, and we saw Larry Bird and Magic Johnson within about 14 hours of each other.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Hey, that's a good trip right there.
Magic shot 3 for 14 against Providence, but he had like 15 assists, you know.
And, well, Bob Ryan's a good trip, Jeff, as we all know. So happy birthday, Larry Joe Bird, right,
yeah,
Bobby?
Larry
65.
turned 65 today, amazingly. And all I can say is it was a rather great pleasure when here's the way I always put it, guys. When he joined the Celtics, I was 10 years into my career, all right, 10 years. And I said, it was as if I signed up for an art course because I liked the course, but I didn't know who the teacher was going to be. And the teacher walked in and it was Michelangelo. And that's how I feel about the way Larry Bird entered my basketball life in 1979. He embodied everything that to me was great and good about basketball in one package. And I wound up writing more words about Larry Bird than anybody that I've ever covered. And, you know, he was a cottage industry for me, quite frankly. And, you know, it don't have to go over how great he was, but just a lot of attention is being focused on the 85, 86 Celtics now. As of course, Dan Shaughnessy's book is terrific for people want to know. And, you know, you just remember the farther away we are from it, guys, the more I appreciate it because the game is so different now, you know? Yeah. And that team and that game. And Larry would have been great in this. Imagine if you told Larry, go ahead, take a dozen threes tonight instead of the 4 or 5 that would be the most he would ever take because the game was different. Anyway, happy birthday, Larry. And, you know, and 65, it's a little scary.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Always a pleasure. Ryan Goodman with Tanguay, the pod.